Hi, everyone. Today we're here to talk about Make It Rain, tips for getting an ALA grant. Let's get into it. Next slide, please. I'm Kathy Zappatello, the Executive Director of the Conneaut Public Library in Conneaut, Ohio. And I'm also the lead instructor for ARSL, the Association for Rural and Small Libraries, for our Leadership Academy. It's our second pilot of that. But I am also on the committee that helps the Public Programming Office. And I'm here with my colleague who will introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Julie Robinson. I'm the Refugee and Immigrant Services and Empowerment Outreach Manager for the Kansas City Public Library in Missouri. And I also sit on that committee with Kathy. Next slide, thank you. All right, this is a simplified version because if I went into detail, we'd be here all day. So create connection. First, I already told you the first part, sorry. Second part is that the PPO staff is collectively a creative genius. They are responsible for programming librarian, sharing ideas for everyone. And have you seen the new webpage? If you haven't, please do. Online learning, webinars that are free. Who doesn't like free? Grant and exhibit opportunities. The PPO staff research and seek out grants and exhibits being proposed to the library community. And then they put everything into wonderful packages for us and let us learn how to apply it for the grants and the exhibits. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the charge for the committee that both Kathy and I sit on, okay? And the advisory committee really is a directive to assist the Public Programs Office. Every member has the opportunity to state opinions, ask questions during the meetings, and I believe that having librarians from all types of institutions working with the PPO staff gives a greater depth of knowledge and experience that helps make the program offerings more robust. And next slide.
Okay. So the responsibilities of the Public Program Office, it's kind of cool. We're on the committee and then we also have staff. And so what are some of these responsibilities? And I love this slide because really it's laid out great. If you just look at that first word going down, each thing, identify, share, advise, advocate, be active in ALA, promote and attend, right? So we work closely with our ALA office to talk about what kind of initiatives, what opportunities are out there. What does that framework look like? And just like Julie said, help that staff prepare what this all looks like before it then goes out to the ALA community. But then, of course, we're always looking back at and getting that feedback and looking at some of that information. And so when we continue to advise that and keep sharing out that information, each one of these programs kind of churns and comes out, and you see different versions of them as we continue to work and to get better. So one of the main things that we do in our responsibilities, and this is really the main point, is showing up, because when we show up, then we're building relationships. And everything that we're about to talk about right now that our housekeeping details are over, it's about, building relationships and writing a grant that will not only get you noticed, but also get you some money. So let's start there. We have a wonderful website. So next slide. Now, Julie talked about this a few slides ago, but hey, we have a slide right here on it, programminglibrarian.org. And I'll tell you what, this is already done and we're so excited. This is more exciting than some of the grants that we have, because this is your one-stop shop actually to know exactly what is going on and what we do at any moment in time. It's really vivacious too. It's going to be fabulous. All right, next slide. And Julie and I sat here for quite a while going, how do we tell everybody about all of these different opportunities? And when we started to research on how we were going to pull all this together, the Public Programming Office over the years, boy, we've really done some different initiatives and different grants. You see some come around again and some different ones. So the next two slides are just our way of showing you all of the different opportunities that there are. And of course, our Peggy Barber, the Sarah Jafarian School Librarian Award. These are things that we see, year after year, these renewable But some other initiatives that they come and go, and without, if you're not connected and you're not in that website and you're not connected to this office, sometimes you miss out on knowing what these different opportunities are. Next slide. One opportunity.
Okay,
Yeah,
grant.
this is Julie's. I was going to say, I was going to talk about opportunity, but you know what? Julie's
Okay.
like, listen, this is my opportunity, Kathy.
Okay, so I know that you all can read what those are up there. And they're all very important, you know, make sure you're looking for the calls for proposals, you know, and it goes through. They help you every step, but I want to talk to you about peer reviewers. And so people who review proposals are just like you and me. They are you and me. I've reviewed several applications for grants. It's all there for you to read. They give you the literature, they tell you what it is, it makes everything very easy for you. And if you need clarification, all you have to do is get a hold of the PPO office. They'll tell you, yes, this is what it is. This is how you fill out this, you know, rubric, whatever. This is really easy. And I know it says 5 steps. I was going to tell you it was 5 easy steps, but I decided I should do that. So
It's one easy step. Just do it. That's how
yeah,
easy it is.
thank you, Kathy. That was much better. I wish I thought of that. Okay, next slide. And okay, so again, training and onboarding. A whole lot of resources. I mean, you don't know how many resources are actually out there. The marketing templates, all of that. Each of you have access to that training, to the onboarding resources, template support. The support is so important. Because you don't want to sit there going, I don't know what to do now. What do I do? Who do I call? Who, you know, do I, you know, put the bat sign up so Batman can come and rescue you? No. So while it may look daunting, it's not as intimidating as it seems. It is actually in a way that you can go through it very easily. Next slide, please. All right. I love this. Know the forecast. You stay connected. Definitely. Professionally, you are all ALA because you're listening to this. You are watching what we're doing. So you're already connected. I mean, I don't have a clue how many people are in ALA anymore, but there's a lot more than just Kathy and me. Okay. So there's divisions, there's roundtables, there's ALA Connect. Look at all of that. Also look at your state sources. Those are very important. So in your community, I connect with every organization and agency I can find so that I can create the classes I need here at the library. So a couple of years ago, we were asked to list all of our partnerships. I gave up at 50. And I thought, okay, this should give them a big idea of how many people I contact. Okay, I do a lot of networking. So do all of that. Start a list. It really will help. Stay ready. Okay, this is really important because you never know when that opportunity is going to walk across your path. And sometimes they come out of nowhere.
And when you go to that website, they're usually 2 days later, right? So you got to be ready, stay ready.
Right. So keep all your files up to date. Current staff members and their job titles, completed projects, a contact list of those organizations and agencies. And if you have primary partners that you want to mention, be sure you have those either highlighted or right at the top. In my case, it's refugee resettlement agencies. Organizational priorities and plans. Okay. Current strategic plan. Make sure that you organize your department or your library's priorities. Sometimes mine are not quite the same as what the libraries are looking at, but it's for my community. Since 2014, when I took over, created this job, I've updated my strategic plan every year except last year. And I have not felt comfortable all year long because I don't have a current one. I know this sounds like, okay, this is a lot of work, but it's really, truly important. And next slide.
Oh, here's mine. I'll shout it, Julie. Read guidelines carefully. We were just laughing at ourselves when we were working on this because, we thought we better just pull this out and just make it its own slide and really hit it home is read all guidelines carefully. We just talked about earlier how there are several different opportunities and different initiatives. And with those monies come different outcomes and different, how we're trying to move the needle, right? And so all of it goes into this greater practice of everything. And with that, they're not all cookie cutter, right? And you probably know this if you've written grants, you have local grants, you have ALA grants, there's different, and it's all different. And so becoming familiar with our guidelines really only is half the thing because each guideline is different and you always got to read them carefully. So what's in these that you have to read carefully? The project descriptions, right? So what's going to be eligible criteria? What are they looking for? So it's going to lay it out exactly. And so when we go back to what Julie was talking about, staying ready, if we have some initiatives that are already kind of packaged up, what's your dreams? What do you want to do? If some of those wants and needs and desires have been outlined in a strategic plan, then immediately you're able to recognize that alignment when you're reading these descriptions and you're reading the guidelines for grants to see if you fit immediately. And then award information, because, it has we're going to talk about timeline in a little bit, but, award information, there's a certain way that this grant is going to function based on its funding source, and we must follow that. You cannot deviate from it. And that's the same for grant requirements, right? So when we talk about executing a grant and reporting a grant, now I'm in a really small library, so sometimes this doesn't apply to me, but is that the same person in your organization? Because writing a grant has certain requirements based on what you're being asked to do, but the execution and the reporting of it are actually different components. And so if you have different players that don't understand the big picture, you might not be getting the data that you need to either fill out the report if you're not the one executing. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Eligible expenses, talk about reading carefully, right? If you have some preconceived notion in your mind that if you didn't reconcile that and get that clear, you're not going into this correctly, right? You can't, put the round peg in the square hole. It has to fit, and everything must fit into the guideline. There is actually there's a little wiggle room when we come to these things. And then, of course, dates and deadlines. When the grant is due, there's milestones on that, of course. And executing the grant, there are milestones, and the deadline, and how are you using the funds, right? There is going to be some limitations and some functionality there. And all of it is separate, but all of it is in the guidelines. So each separate thing needs to be read carefully. All right, next slide. Where to find the why? Where to find the why? So I love the PPO office because when opportunities do arise, then a lot of times there's an application webinar. And the office and the advisory committee, we take the time to do that, kind of like what we're doing right now, so that you fully understand what the opportunity is and can ask the questions and to decide if your library would want to apply or not. So it's very important to be astute on when these things are going on. The next one is something I love to do is when I hear about an opportunity, the very first thing I do is read about past recipients and what kind of projects they did. It gives me an indication if my project is similar, if it'll get funded, or even if it's different, but still fits in to whatever the overall guidelines are. So then it could even sometimes give you an edge somehow, if you think you've got something maybe even a little different. And then, the other thing that we just keep saying over and over and over again, and it's kind of like even why we're in here today, it's building relationships, right? Asking the right people the right questions. And this depends on the grant. If you are, like Julie said, finding a partner, who else are you sharing your patrons with that are going to be part of this initiative, right? And that's who you would, are we going to serve our patrons if we write this grant together? Is this something that you could also utilize or make known to your people, right? Is this needed in our community? Is this needed in the library system, right? So you're building those relationships and you're actually finding out if this is the right project for the right library or the right initiative. All right. And now we got to start singing in the rain with some money, right? So Julie, I love what you said earlier about when you were talking about the peer review
Mhm.
and about and you said like picture your peers, like, and that's why it's important that we're doing this webinar today, because we're two people on the committee, right? We write grants. We're also, help review grants. We're on these committees. And, that's just really important that you're also networked and that, perhaps you choose to be a part of the machine that operates. But knowing your peers, picturing them when you write, right? If you picture Julie and myself, these are the people that are reading, and so you want to write your proposal for the yous out there, right? For the us's. And that's who you're writing this to. It's your peers. And the details matter. And look at that. Details is number one, but you know what number two is? Concision.
Mhm.
And you know how hard that is when, Julie, I don't know if you remember this, but, back in the olden days, it was a lot more free writing, and grant writing was structured a lot differently than it is today. And there were just known components that you executed, whereas now it's basically an online, you fill out a form. But with that, there's that pesky little thing called characters, right? And you only have so many to use. And so it's really hard when you're trying to be detailed, but you also need to be concise and choosing your words very carefully. That takes a lot longer than what you may think.
Mhm.
Finding local partners, almost everything we do nowadays, really in library, no matter what type of library you're from, it's finding local partners. Who do you share your patrons with? Who are you, also executing services with? And, when we partner together, you have a better opportunity. When we know that marketing is going to look a little bigger, where reach is going to be a little more impactful, having partners always helps. It always does. And along with that is just that community impact. Why are we doing any of this if we're not trying to impact our community in a positive way, right? And to make positive change. So without that, I don't know why we're all here. But also, I love this, a reference refresh. When we're writing grants, a lot of times we're stuck in our own world where we data mine, and we data mine in the ways and the minds that we're used to mining in. And when we have good community partners, then we can find different data too. We can find different data sets that also help us display a picture. And so when we reach out to our partners, we can also get other data sets that I think go unnoticed. And there's a lot of value in outside library when we talk about, trying to do an outcome-based grant, right? We're trying to make an impact. Budget blunders. Guess what? Sometimes things don't add up. Isn't that crazy? Sometimes things don't add up. It must add up. It must match the budget guidelines. Are you purchasing and doing things congruently in what the guidelines said? And also, does it add up? Also, with ALA grants and many other grants, does your library entity fully understand, what your buy-in is going to be? Is there a percentage? Is there an in-kind? What kind of workload for your staff? These are all blunders that if you don't take workload, capacity, all of these things, having all the money given to you in the world is great, but do you have the capacity and do you have everything correct? And does the math, right? Does it make sense? And of course, the timeline. This shouldn't be at the bottom. It probably should be number one, because, the organizational geek in me, without a timeline, forget it. It's all about that timeline, because if we're not doing things correctly, getting that information back and churning it out, it only delays the next opportunity.
Right. And I'd like to add to that timeline, put it on your calendars. If you have an interim report due, put it a month early, because I know myself and I will find other things that have to be done first. And then I'm 2 days out and writing it like crazy, trying to get it done. So try to be better at this than I am. Okay, play on repeat. I know it says read it again, read it out loud. Okay, so let's talk about that again. These are excellent and necessary requirements. Really, this is not just, oh yeah, I'll read it and then I'll sign off on it. No. Have someone who has not contributed to it read it. Not someone who has helped you with this application. Let them come in with no understanding. Read the document for clarity, conciseness. Remember the concision back there? And grammar. There is nothing I hate more than to find people saying things in a document that says, why didn't we read that? Or, oh golly, we spell checked it. Don't do that. Don't do that. you have to read it. To the becomes taught he. Don't do that. Okay?
Oh,
It's-
I've been there. Guilty,
Yep.
guilty.
Yep. And I always have somebody double check my math for those budget blunders, because yes, sometimes it refuses to add up. Now, I also have a philanthropy department and a finance department. And so if I have somebody working from another department, they're not going to tell me what that person makes per hour. So I have to rely on them to make sure that when they get that money in there, it all works out.
Mhm.
So sometimes it's a little bit trickier to do that. And next slide, please.
Well, when I look at this slide and I think about what you just said about reading it again, it's the number one thing I wish everyone just knew when they were grant writing is just to be vulnerable. And I'm going to tell you right now, I have lost a lot more grants than I ever won. Written a lot, didn't get, but it's being vulnerable. And just like Julie said, I have here too, colleague cross-check. So, she just said, read it again, read it out loud, read it, give it to everyone. And I know that's hard when your peers come back and say, Kathy, you misspelled a word. Or I don't understand what you're saying here. And so that's why I put out of pocket, because I was doing a grant one time and everybody's eyes here saw something and I happened to give it to a friend that was outside of the field. And when they read it, it was like, I don't understand what you're saying. And getting that feedback, some of it relevant, some of it not, because of, you have to take everything for what it is, but it was really eye-opening to me. And one of the other things that I learned during that experience too, and it doesn't work with every grant, but I know this is going to sound bonkers. I read it backwards. I read each paragraph like in opposite order, because, it still has to make sense. And I can find misspelled words better too, words that I transpose and things like that. But what we're saying is, being vulnerable, you will make a mistake because we're human. Listen, I wish I could say I'm perfect and everybody's perfect and everything's just perfect out there and unicorn and rainbows and flying over. No. There'll be mistakes. But we got to be vulnerable and just don't be afraid to do it. And once you have your core group of people, if you find your people, then you'll read for them and they'll read for you. And it'll become something that you'll do colleague to colleague. But the other thing on here, as far as the next step, that's what our public programs office is for. And the whole reason, Julie, I don't know about you, but the whole reason I'm even on this committee now is talking, it's about building relationships, becoming involved, meeting people, being a peer reviewer, feeling like I can contribute and, being here today. But the public programs office, I'm telling you right now, next slide. This is all you need to know. I've done this before too. And Julie, I think you and I talked about it, but you know how hard it is when you're writing a grant that you're really not sure of and you're giving it to ALA to read. You're like, am I on the right track? Is this going right? Please reach out and just ask me a question, Julie question, the office, there's the email right there, and I'll tell you what a great group of people. I've asked some real dumb ones. There are dumb questions, people. There are. I've asked them, but they're always there because I can be vulnerable. You can be vulnerable too.
Yeah.
All right, next slide. So we do have some additional resources, and I love this so much. We started off at the beginning talking about having that redesigned website.
Mm-hmm.
And, everything's getting a fresh look. There's a lot of change going on in the world, and not all of it's scary. Some of it's really kind of cool. And this is one of those things that's cool. Our new website, but also our programming librarian e-newsletter. And so I love this. You get all kinds of information. I know we have committee members that are writing articles, and it's a very vivacious little thing there. And then we have our Plig group on Facebook. So if you're a Facebooker, I know, listen, just saying the word Facebook, I'm going to crawl out of my skin and disappear off the screen. But for those of you that love it, this is actually a really good group, and anybody that I can get in front of me that'll just stand for long enough, I'm telling them about this website or this Facebook group, because if you're a practicing programmer, in your library and you're not connected, oh my goodness sakes, there's so many good ideas that come through there. So, opportunities abound, but it's all about staying connected, about building relationships, because once you build the relationship, it's easy to be vulnerable. It's easier to ask the dumb question when everybody knows you and everybody knows the stuff. So Julie, that's all I had. I don't know if you have any other really great tips for anyone out there.
No, I mean, I'm going to reiterate, find the relationships. Kathy and I did not know each other before we came onto this committee. I'm in Missouri. She's in Ohio. I've only been to Ohio once, and that was for PLA. So let's, find those people. When you're at ALA, look up and see where people are coming from. When you are at any organization, always reach out and find somebody new. Try to get as many business cards as you can, because you never know. That person may have a skill set that you don't, that you can ask those questions of before.
Yeah, I love that. Building a good team of people around you to kind of fill in all those gaps. But you know what, Julie, I love that we're ending this way, because it is such a, I love the library community, and it really doesn't even matter what library type you're from. I think once you enter the space, everybody is really trying. We're always trying. Everyone is always trying. And we just need other people to try along with us, to be on the committee, to obviously apply for our grants, to spread the news about what we're doing, but also be part of a learning community of a professional nature. And, there's always space for you at the table.
Someone told me after the last conference that we went to, she discovered that she's not alone.
Yeah.
There are a lot of us out there that feel like we're alone at times. But you know what? You can email someone, you can talk to someone, and you can get great ideas from what somebody else has done and tweak them to your own library's point of view. It's something that we should all work a little harder on, because there are people to be with, and set up your own little group of people who call once a week or once a month, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Your own little cabinet. So speaking about reaching out, here's us. And, I don't know about you, Julie, but every single time I do a webinar, somebody will reach out to me and ask a question, and I welcome it again now, please. If you have a question and you're like, what is that lady talking about? Send me an email and I'll explain it to you. But Public Programs Office is on there, obviously me, and I know Julie, you would too. Welcome any questions. We're just here to help,
Please contact us. I always like to talk about what I do and how I do it.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.